Friday mailbag. Has the media created an unfair narrative for Nebraska and Matt Rhule?
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network, your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda. We put that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment. Putting in the work, that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. It is Locked On Nebraska podcast. Connor Happer, Mitch Sherman with you. Super Bowl Friday, if that exists. Yeah, Super Bowl Friday. We were just talking about before we hit record here. We're 1 week away from college baseball season beginning. The weather is, I'd call it
like
lovely.
Spring.
Yeah,
it's like spring.
This is, how
driving with my windows down. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It's fantastic. They said it was supposed to be windy. I listened to my local meteorologist, and I didn't even notice. It was so nice out. I didn't even notice if it was windy. Everything just felt so wonderful outside on this as we record this on a Thursday late in the day.
We got the sun out, and that's most of the battle. All right, let's get to your questions because you have a few of them. Appreciate you sending those in. I know we're in a little bit of a slow time of the year, but thanks for coming up with some stuff and helping us out with the show. Here is Doug. He says, "Hi guys, I love the podcast and regularly watch on the YouTube feed." Hello on the YouTube feed. Wanted you to know that my brother-in-law was in the hospital in Illinois in September and he wasn't doing great. And the links to your YouTube channel would brighten his day. He's doing great now. So much for that. Oh my goodness. We played a role in healing Doug's brother-in-law. So I'm very excited about this. Glad to hear that your brother-in-law is doing well. My comment is, Doug says, do you think the success of the basketball team has had any ill effects on the football narrative? Fans are very addicted to recency bias. If Fred can't do it, then why can't Matt?
Everything. Football has an ill effect on everything right now, as we talked about in the.
No, he's saying the other way. He's saying,
yeah, true. He is.
Success of the basketball team make football look worse. Which
okay.
I think there is that might.
This is the Indiana effect.
It might be a little bit of the equation. It might be a little bit of the equation, especially like right now. But when football season actually comes around, I don't know. We're not going to be thinking about, hey, look, Fred did it. It's just a convenient topic to talk about right now. Probably
this is like the Kurt Signetti effect, but on your own campus. Yeah, I mean the fact the basketball success. We had a discussion a few days ago about, and this was more of a resources thing, a money thing, because Nebraska's going to now have to put more into basketball, and whether it's more difficult today to be good in both sports and be committed to both sports. But that's not really what this is about. I think that the basketball success should be good for football because not everybody's sitting around in the corner of their living room gnawing on their fingernails because Matt Rhule's safety coach just left to go to the NFL. Like you can turn on the your computer and see Rink Mast like not throwing up and actually being healthy and talking about playing at Rutgers and getting his shot back this weekend. So I think it's not fair to basketball to say that basketball is a distraction because it's more than that. It's a sideshow. Like basketball is a real event in town right now, which is not usually the case around the state of Nebraska. Usually more people are concerned about whatever it is that's ailing football or is good with football this time of year. And we'd be spending more time talking about spring practice and the comings and goings of football, if not for this basketball success. It's been a little bit slower this week because there was no game, but it's going to rev back up fast Saturday, 11 a.m. out in New Jersey, and then Purdue's coming to town.
That's a healthier way to look at it. But I do hear, like, you know, you just hear this just thrown into conversations if you're talking with your friends or whatever. How is it that every single other program at Nebraska finds a way to have like relative success, and it's just we're waiting on the one last one, you know? And like, I don't think that actually affects the football program in any real way, but it might subconsciously like speed up the gears in your head a little bit. So yeah, there's something there. I don't know that it actually affects anything, but a conversation piece for sure.
It gets back to do they want it too much? The football side of it. Does everybody want it too much that makes it difficult to happen? So
maybe, yeah. All right, let's go to
Stu.
Yeah, let's go to Stu in Waunakee, Wisconsin. I believe optimism has been tempered by the third year storyline that has been unmercifully force-fed to us by us, the media. Were those expectations ever realistic? I'm not sure. But in looking at some of the key dials on the dashboard, the readings seem to be mixed. For example, from a roster perspective, you have good retention, but an underwhelming 2026 recruiting class wedged in between. You have a portal class that doesn't seem to impress at filling key holes at running back and defensive line. Perhaps this is the universal new world discomfort that we need to get used to, but it is undeniably disillusioning. Now, the latest narrative from the media: 2026 is a make or break year for Matt Rhule. And a question: are we really willing to risk losing the 2027 recruiting class because of another manufactured expectation? Are we so impatient that we are not willing to endure a bridge year?
Ooh. Stu brings up a good point about the media causing the fans to be disillusioned. I mean, it would have been really hard for the fans to notice that Nebraska was struggling at the end of the year if we hadn't been here making podcasts about it and people writing stories and talking on the radio. You probably wouldn't have even noticed that they lost 3 consecutive games by 73 points from mid-November until New Year's Eve.
Yeah, that's you guys can all see it. So you can make up your minds, I suppose. You don't have to. The pressure doesn't come from there. The pressure comes from the on the field results. And by the way, I think we both agree on this show, and in most of, if not all of the media, like anyone who I've ever heard talk about this is like, he's not going anywhere in 2026 after 2026, like pretty much regardless of how bad it is. So you're not throwing anything away, you know. It's like, now you know it when you see it, that type of thing. And so we reserve judgment until November and December. But like, I think there's a low likelihood of Rhule getting fired after next season, like really low. And so things will continue on. Yeah.
You never say never. I would put the chances primarily because of, well, first of all, he's like 3 months ago, like this, we were talking about how Nebraska, they got to keep him. They got to find a way. You can't let Penn State get him. And then your quarterback gets hurt. You have a rough finish to the season. Things went off the rails with your run defense. You know, you fire the defensive coordinator. There's some other things that you all know about. And we're having this conversation here. I haven't heard anybody say, other than like a stray fan comment, I have not heard anybody in the media say, and Stu says the latest narrative from the media is that 2026 is a make or break year for Matt Rhule. I actually have not heard anyone in the media say that.
Yeah, I think like there's versions of that, but they're less like urgent. Like,
he needs to show improvement. Okay.
Like, yeah, right. Like I heard my colleague John Bishop say it this way. Like, if you are, this is a wind blowing year. Like if you are on the fence, the wind will blow you one way or the other, off, or, you know, in the right direction or in the wrong one. And I think that's appropriate. Sensible. After 4 years. So yeah, I just don't, you know, it's weird that there's not like a whole lot of urgency, but we all sort of universally agree, not that there's not urgency, but we all sort of agree that nothing final is going to happen after 26.
As for the 27 recruits and how they might be affected by all of this stuff, they should just put their head down and work and plan on coming to Nebraska. And if something happens to derail their plans, like, then that shouldn't be impacted by the media. Like, recruits, like, interacting, we've seen that this week. It's not a good path for them to wander down to like get wrapped up into the daily discussions about Nebraska football, because it can get dark and it can get messy, and that's what fans do, and that's what media members do, and that's not a good place for recruits 2027 or any year.
Let's do one more before we take a break here. Here is Greg at Broken Arrow, our good friend Greg. He says, "Hi fellas, questioning our head coach is a bona fide Husker tradition. In 1978, a portion of the fan base tried to run Tom Osborne off to Colorado. Nothing new. Thank you for all you do."
Greg was a young guy in 1978. He remembers that. Yeah, I don't remember that, but I know the stories and have read about it and have actually heard Coach Osborne talk about that. I think the trying to run him off thing, like, we're not going to go all the way there. Like, Tom was feeling that. He was feeling pressure. I don't know. I'll ask Greg. Greg, send us an email. Like, if you polled the fans back then in 1978 after Nebraska split a pair, finally beat Oklahoma that year, and then you lost to him in the bowl game, and were the fans trying to get rid of him, or was it just like Tom had very high expectations for himself and he maybe was feeling pressure that wasn't actually there?
Yeah. And then he went another 16 years before he won a national championship. So like, I mean, how much pressure he felt in that moment. Okay. I mean, they stayed good, really good throughout that entire period of time, but I'm sure that there was like increasing, like, well, he can't win the big one. He doesn't have the postseason success and all this stuff every year leading up to until he finally did it.
He did go out to Boulder and talk to them about that job. And ultimately, of course, that did not come together. So, all right, let's take a break. We will come back and get to more of your questions. That is next.
But first, a word from FanDuel. It is the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday. As you know, the Super Bowl is on Sunday. One last kickoff and one last chance to get on the NFL action before we officially wrap things up. Super Bowl 60. FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Last I saw, Seattle was a 4.5 point favorite, so you could go with the regular old spread or the money line, whatever it might be. But the Super Bowl is for props and individual player stuff and things that happen that are not particularly football related. There is some of that on FanDuel. You can create yourself a same game parlay, whatever it might be. Just have some fun. Or if you're looking to get more serious, it is there for you as well. If you are a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season, of course, is done. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Head to FanDuel.com to get started.
And I am going to tell you about TurboTax, because tax season does not have to take over your life. And this year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a local expert, start to finish, without the stress or the guesswork. So instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with the local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from the W-2s to the self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can load your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. So for a limited time, you can have your taxes done, as we've said, by a local TurboTax expert. It's $150 all in if a TurboTax expert did not file for you last year. Just get it done by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. All right, welcome back. Second segment of this mailbag podcast episode. Thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. And thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports Podcast Network. All right, let's see where we're at. Michael in Leroy, Michigan. Seems like Nebraska fans don't feel like they won the offseason natty, and they're grumbling. What are your biggest grumbles about the program right now? Mine, this is Michael, says the failure to land any top defensive lineman in the portal after we watched Nebraska fail to get D linemen in the portal last year and then subsequently struggle on defense all season. Add in Rhule's statement that we have enough money to compete after he signed his extension. And I'm not too happy we couldn't land a defensive line portal class. I'm not feeling optimistic about 2026.
Yeah, I get that. For me, it is pretty simple. Lack of direction on offense. I think that touches a lot of things in the program, and it has a large effect on obviously your ability to win football games. All the other stuff is important, but it all feels like sort of window dressing unless you could figure out, how to make the offense work, which they haven't been able to do really in 3 years. So that's the biggest one for me, and it's certainly my biggest source of pessimism going into 2026.
Yeah, I don't know if this is my biggest source of pessimism, but it's kind of like the gripe of the moment right now is about special teams and what Nebraska did to replace Mike Eckler. I think that Nebraska could have done more to look for a coordinator who has done it. I don't think that, and we'll hear a question about this later in the episode. I don't think that, and I think we've learned this over the years. We saw it with the defensive line coach last year, that Nebraska is not a place for a coach without experience at this level to learn on the job, that it's a place for experienced, seasoned coaches who've done it before and proven to have success to come in and then translate that to this level. So it's not a knock on the guys who are being asked to do it. It's just the fact that they don't have the experience and haven't done it before at the college level. Certainly not at a place like Nebraska. So that's number one gripe right now. All right. Here we go. From Ron in Maryville, Tennessee. Hey guys, 2-part Super Bowl question related, Super Bowl related question for the pod. Since you brought up this year's halftime choice, we did in fact talk about the halftime act on the Thursday episode. Mm-hmm. Your favorite halftime show of all time? That's question 1 from Ron. And then question 2, the halftime show that you wish would happen.
Wow. So I don't know. I've never really thought about this that much. I like you, Mitch, I'm sort of in and out during the halftime show, but I do like music, and it's supposed to be like, and there's every once in a while, there's one that just hits you perfect for whatever age you are and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I will go back to, this was 3 or 4 years ago now, the Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Mary J. Blige, like all of that, all like there was probably 7 people that were in the halftime show, and Snoop Dogg was like in a car or something, like there was a whole bunch of different stuff going on. I love that. Yeah. I thought that was like the perfect medley for me. And so that's the one I remember a lot of them, but that a lot of people, I particularly enjoyed myself in that one.
A lot of people like that one.
Yeah.
A lot of people say Prince just put on the best show at halftime.
Yeah.
I like you am probably more connected to one because of my age and the generation and like where it landed for me. So it's going to be quite a ways before your Dr. Dre Snoop performance. I go back to 2002, which was the game was played at the Superdome, and the Patriots beat the Rams 20-17. Mm-hmm. This was U2 at halftime.
Oh yeah.
And right after 9/11, I know they're an Irish band, but it was like it was just a big thing. You still a very like fragile emotional time for America, and to see U2 put on that show at that moment was really cool. Yeah. And then the second part of Ron's question, do you have one that you wish would happen?
Like we're definitely past our, but I think like probably my favorite artist of all time is Billy Joel, but we're past the time where he would do a halftime show. So
yeah, and the got some health issues going on there that could make that difficult. That would have been cool in his day, like a Billy Joel Elton John halftime. How about that?
Oh yeah, sign me up.
I'll like take the low hanging fruit and say Metallica, because there have been a lot of people who wanted to see Metallica do a Super Bowl halftime, but I believe they're on record saying they won't do it or wouldn't do it, and they still play. And I'm not like a metalhead, a huge Metallica, but I think Metallica would be really cool. Like, yeah, if you could play Enter Sandman like at a Super Bowl halftime, like that would be awesome.
Be pretty.
They're
sweet.
quite old. They're quite old.
Yeah.
So I'm showing my age on that one too. All right, let's move on.
Okay, let's go to Andy in Omaha. Do you have more confidence in the football team winning 8 games or more, I assume, in 2026, or the basketball team making it to the Elite 8?
Yeah. That's an easy one for me right now.
3 games in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, that's an easy one for me right now, because I think where the two programs are at, and like the unlikely nature of the football team getting to 8 wins in 2026. Yeah, you have to have a really good weekend on the opening weekend. Like Nebraska is going to be a heavy favorite to win its round of 64 game. And then will be a higher seed in its round of 32 game. So win what you're supposed to win. And then when you get to the second weekend, it's a roll of the dice. It's a crapshoot. You can have a terrible matchup. Like, I'm not saying Nebraska is going to make it to the second weekend, but if it does, it's just one more win to make it to the Elite 8. Like, it can happen. I like the chances of that happening this year more than I do Nebraska winning 8 games in football.
I think I do too. It's really hard to do, but I winning 8 games next year will be really difficult to do for the football team as well. So yeah, give me basketball right now on February 6th.
All right, to Scott in Windsor, Ontario. He says, Brett Maher is a kicker, possibly a kicking coach. He is not a special teams coordinator. When is Matt Rhule going to learn? How many first-time coaches have failed the program and players under this head coach? The University of Nebraska football program is not an entry-level coaching job. How did Indiana turn the worst program in the FBS into a national champion in 2 years? A little port of luck and a ton of premier coaching. We
talked about this, but
I disagree with that last part a little bit.
Yeah, this is what's hard about it. Like, nobody would have said that he or his staff, Signetti or his staff, were elite coaches in 2023 when he was hired. Nobody would have said that.
People were laughing at them.
Right. Yeah. Because he was out there telling everybody who they were going to beat and what they're going to be in the Big Ten championship game. We're like, all right, buddy,
100% correct.
Calm down. And turns out he undershot it. So like, I mean, that it's, hindsight, sure. But Nebraska, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. And I think you can have coaches, assistant coaches, and coordinators who are being thrust into a role for the first time, and it works out, or it doesn't, and people will look back on it and say, "Oh, well, that guy didn't have enough experience." So I think that's a rose-colored glasses way to look at what Indiana's done.
I like Scott's primary take in this question, that Nebraska is not an entry-level spot. And and we talked about this a minute ago, that coaches should not be put in position to do it for the first time at Nebraska. There's no real need for that with the resources that are available to Matt Rhule in hiring coaches. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, there is another question on the other side related to Curt Signetti after this. But right now, a word from Mazda. This is Mazda's Moving the Game Forward segment. For those who show there's more to the score than what's on screen. This is the time 3 times a week where we highlight a player or a coach or a fan or a moment that defines what matters in sports. And this week, as we get closer to Saturday and Nebraska basketball going on the road to play at Jersey Mike's Arena, otherwise known as the Rack, it's Braden Frager who is the player that we're highlighting. He's moving the game forward with his return for the Huskers last Sunday, scoring 20 points after his injury situation, the spark that he provides on offense, his aggressive play, what he does for Nebraska on the basketball court. Frager is showing what it takes to raise the bar and the results of extra work done off the court. He dials in every detail. He provides fire. He gives that I never quit kind of grit. Mazda puts that same passion into every model. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
All right, final segment for the week. Thanks for being with us this week. Enjoy the Super Bowl and enjoy some basketball this weekend as well as Nebraska gets back to it in New Jersey. Here is Max. In the situation, Nebraska gets 5 or less wins in this upcoming season. Let's say the whole staff gets evaluated, and ultimately, let's say UNL decides to move on from Matt Rhule. All right, we'll play along. You see the success within a Nick Saban coaching tree. Should Nebraska go after a Curt Cignetti coaching tree product like Mike Shanahan? Clearly, the NIL and talent tree is there for Nebraska. So if consistent failure is seen, it is very clearly a coaching issue.
Mike Shanahan is the Indiana offensive coordinator, not related to the Shanahans of the NFL coaching family. Kyle and the other Mike Shanahan is dad. Yeah. Okay, I have to put myself into this situation where Nebraska's hiring a coach in a year. Should they look at the success that Nick Saban's former assistants had and say, well, Cignetti's not only the next Nick Saban, he's also a Nick Saban coaching tree product. So you could get like the branch of a branch.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think that's the direction that Nebraska should look to go. Like, let's go get a Cignetti guy.
I think there will be a run on it, over the next several years, especially if he continues to have success. But I don't necessarily need to go that way. And I also don't know if any of Cignetti's success is like because of Saban. They feel very different to me.
Right.
And I also think it's important to note that it's possible that, Cignetti might just be a unicorn, Cignetti is
a one-off.
I think he defies conventional wisdom in a lot of different ways, and the way that coaches have done things over a long, long period of time. And he's at a program that, was just in the right spot for that to happen at that time. So I don't think you need to go plucking out of that tree necessarily. If there is a coach who happens to be ready to go at that point, then maybe you give it a look, but not because they're in the Cignetti tree or just because they're in the Saban tree.
The reason that Saban has all of his former assistants coaching playoff teams is because what he did at Alabama, like he built an empire. It was unlike anything we've seen in college football in the last 30 or 40 years. The extended amount of success and great coaches who came into Alabama and went out of Alabama is a far cry from what Cignetti is doing at Indiana. So I don't think it's a healthy comparison to make. Cignetti's winning because of Cignetti, and Saban won because of Saban, but we don't know yet that Cignetti, and I don't think this will turn out to be the case, that he's going to churn out all kinds of head coaches year after year after year. Now, Brian Haynes, the Hoosiers defensive coordinator, is going to get a head coaching job sooner or later. And I think that'll be a smart hire for some program to get him. I don't know that it would be a smart hire for, it could be wrong on this, but I don't know that it'd be a smart hire for like an SEC or Big Ten program. I think like he'll go to a G5 school, or maybe he'll go to a Big 12 school and have a lot of success. But We'll see. We could look back at this answer in 3 years, and I could look completely stupid for saying that Cincinnati's not going to spin out a bunch of coaches, but I'm not convinced on that right now. I do think he'll continue to win in Bloomington.
Yeah. When you're hiring someone, it's just so much of a product of what's quote unquote available to you, how much of a ledge you're willing to go out on, what the fan base desires, what you came from, right? What you had, the type of coach you had before. A lot of times Nebraska's made, polar opposite hires, things like it's just the timing just has to be right for everything. There's a lot of different type of coaches that could win at Nebraska. Unfortunately, so far Nebraska hasn't really found the right one yet. Maybe it is Rhule and maybe it's not. Here is Vince in Napa. Happy Friday, fellas. Hopefully enjoying the Super Bowl sort of festivities out there. A lot of visitors.
Oh, he's definitely enjoying the Roger Craig news that's been coming out.
Yeah, I love that. So Vince says this, happy Friday. Thanks for always letting me weigh in on the program in the great town of Napa, California. Lovely. While I understand that the head coach of a major college football program is the face of the organization and being an ambassador is important, at this juncture, I'd rather see Coach Rhule take more of a Toby Keith approach. Nice. A little less talk, a lot more action. The weekly pressers and Husker Sports Network shows are fine. Those are normal things that Nebraska coaches do. The other stuff, for example, podcasting and weekly Pat McAfee interviews, is a bit excessive for my taste. No, it's easy to poke at given the way the Nebraska face planted at the end of the season, but how much is too much?
Yeah, is that an Elvis? Toby Keith took that line from Elvis Presley. I believe.
Elvis said a little less conversation, a little more action.
Isn't that kind of the same thing? I mean,
definitely. But Toby Keith's a little less talk and a lot more action. I think
that's a different song. Different song altogether. Totally different vibe.
Very different. One word different. Yes.
Yeah, agree that image and perception is reality. Image is important, and I don't believe that Matt Rhule going on Pat McAfee or having a podcast damaged the Nebraska football product, hurt the team, took him away from moments that he needed to be coaching in 2025. Yeah. But I think when you start losing and it doesn't look buttoned up on the field, it's very easy to criticize, and it's just not something that he needs to necessarily deal with. And I do think that you're seeing right now, he is doing a little less talk, and presumably, hopefully, more action. But
right.
I don't even think it's an issue of doing more action. Probably the less talk is the bigger sticking point there.
See, and I don't even mind that he does it. It's just that what he says when he does it, they seem to be, as I've said a million times, he seems to be really, really in tune with what people are talking about his program, and is constantly, trying to blow the wind the other way. And I just don't know that that's something that needs to enter the headspace as much as it seemingly does. So it's more about what he says rather than the amount of time in which he spends saying it. I think that's part of a coach's job these days, to be the front facing person of the program and all that stuff. But I think what bothers me is what he says when he does it, So it's not a whole lot different, but I guess there's a little tweak in there.
Okay, let's go to Steven in Kansas City. Last question of this mailbag. Thank you both for doing the podcast. I listen on my commute every morning. It's kept me engaged with everything Nebraska. That's fantastic. My question is about eligibility. Roger Goodell has mentioned the possibility, has mentioned potentially helping with college football eligibility rules, partly because the NFL is worried about players leaving practice squads and returning to college. Do you think it's possible that the NFL Players Association could step in and limit this? Otherwise, it feels like next season we could see 10 plus players leave NFL teams to go back to college and make more money. For example, Trey Sermon, 27 years old, still has a year of eligibility and currently is on the Pittsburgh Steelers practice squad. He could likely make more money in college for one season than he does in the NFL. Well,
Now,
I mean,
yeah,
you don't laugh at it because we're seeing this kind of junk in the NBA.
But remember, the clock is still enforced, right? The reason why Charles Bediako has a case is because he hasn't reached 5 years since the time from the time he first played college basketball. So like Trey Sermon couldn't do that. He's played too many years. He's been gone too long. So
it's kind of like when you let the genie out of the bottle. Like, at what point does the clock even matter?
Definitely. Fair point.
At what point does somebody challenge the fact that they should arbitrarily be allowed to only participate in college sports for 5 years and say, hey, I'm going before a judge and I'm going to sue the NCAA to give me eligibility. Yeah, I'm 27 years old, but I only played 3 years of college. Like, I got 2 years left. And it's your guess is as good as mine on whether they win that case or not. They very well might. And then be allowed. I would have said no chance 2 years ago on that, maybe 6 months ago on that. But we're seeing movement in this direction. So I don't know. I don't know, Stephen, if Roger Goodell and the Players Association, I mean, those are two separate entities. I don't know what they can do and if they can do anything on this.
I don't think we're as far down the road on that as it might appear, right? Like, the reason that Bediako is able to play right now is because he got an injunction on his case, right? A hold, right? So like, once, and so maybe when they actually go to court and they rule on this, they'll say, yeah, no, you can't do that. That's possible. But for right now, in like this very, very short period of time, this very short window, he's allowed to play because his case hasn't been heard yet. So like, I don't think it's probably as bad as it seems, but you're right. The door is certainly way more open than it's ever thought was possible. So I get it. And I don't blame you for wondering about like, hey, what if this happens and what if this guy comes back and all that stuff. I don't think we'll get there where it's like this total wild, wild west thing, but I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't think so. But there's not a G League in the NFL, so why not use the SEC and for that?
I'd like Roger Goodell to give college football their Saturdays back in January and in December, and and let them be able to run through an entire postseason without trying to avoid the NFL.
That's how we can help. All right, that's going to do it for us. We'll be back with you on Monday. There will be a Super Bowl winner. It will be a sad state of affairs because football will be completely over until July or August or whenever you want to start watching again. So we'll have basketball to react to and all kinds of other stuff to discuss as we make our way through this month of February. Thanks for tuning in today to Locked On Nebraska. Be sure to join us on Monday and make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Nebraska to get all of the latest episodes. For those of you on video, we're going to send you right now over to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And on audio, make your second listen to Locked On College Football Show. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great weekend.